founders from Drinkbox Studios about his new PS3 station game, Guacamelee. Hi, how are you?
Pretty good.
So tell me about Guacamelee.
Okay, so Guacamelee is it's kind of a mishmash of a lot of different genres. At its heart, it's a brawling game, a 2D brawling game, where you play as a luchador, but then there's also other elements, like there's platforming elements, puzzle elements to the game. It's set in a Metroidvania style world, and all of this is kind of wrapped in a Mexican theme.
Now, how did you come up with the idea for Guacamelee?
The game was pitched to the team by our animator, who's actually from Mexico. He came up with the high-level story for the game, a lot of the characters that you meet in the game, and also the title of the game. And we got really excited about all these ideas. He's telling us all these really interesting things about Mexican folklore, things that we had no idea about before. And we thought it'd be really cool to try and explore that.
And so you had mentioned that the system it's going to be on is Sony, and it's going to be downloadable to the PlayStation as well as to the handheld device.
That's right, yeah. So it's going to be released early next year for the PS3 and the PS Vita in the PlayStation Store downloadable.
And as an independent game maker, you said that there's a whole process that you all go through. Do you mind telling me about that? Because I'm very unfamiliar with how that works.
Sure, so, well, there's a lot of steps to getting your game on a console. The first thing you do, you have to become a licensed developer for the platform that you want to release on. So Sony has to give you permission to develop games for their platforms. But that's not actually a very hard thing to do, especially if you have experience in the game industry. And then when you want to make a specific game, you have to submit to several stages of approval with Sony. The first one is like a paper approval for your game concept. The next one, you have to send them like a playable build of your game, which they'll sign off on. And they'll test it and they'll give you feedback, and sometimes there's things that you must fix, or they'll make suggestions about other things. And if you pass that second stage, then there's a final certification stage that you have to go through, where you have to pass basically tests that your game functions well and adheres to like just some Sony standards. And then your game will come out shortly after that you pass those tests.
And do you make games just for Sony, or do you make games for other systems?
To date, we've made games for Sony mostly. We also released one of our games on PC through Steam, but that's not. The main reason for that is that it's just made more sense for our company to do that. We're not opposed to developing games for Xbox, but Sony is always we've worked with Sony a couple times through their Pub Fund program, which is something that will give you a guaranteed minimum royalty when your game is released. Which offsets a lot of the risk that's associated to making an indie game, especially if you're self-publishing and paying for the whole development yourself. In exchange for giving you this royalty, you have to agree to an exclusivity period with Sony. So since we've used that program a few times, we haven't released on any other consoles except for Sony consoles.
So how did you start Drinkbox Studios? I assume you have a background in computer graphics or software design or game design?
Yeah, so personally I went to school for computer science and I was a programmer when I graduated. At first I was making insurance software, but then I moved into the games industry and I worked there for a number of years. And then the company I was working for in Toronto shut down, and myself and a couple of the other guys from that studio started Drinkbox Studios 4 years ago.
Oh, so you guys are a new company. You're based out of Canada.
Yeah.
You design everything in-house?
Yeah, that's right. We have 2 designers on the team, but the studio as a whole kind of designs the game together. The designers are obviously doing most of the design and the implementation of the design, but everyone on the team is able to contribute their ideas to the game.
And I'm learning that with the proliferation of all the different free software programs, that is what is creating a boom in indie game creation. Is that how you all started with your software program? Or do you use the same software programs that the bigger companies use?
We actually wrote our own software programs. When we started, we were trying to make a 2D platforming game, and we evaluated a lot of the software that was out there. And we never found anything that we thought really worked well for the type of games we wanted to make. So we started 4 years ago making our own software, and now we're using that for all of our games.
Oh, okay. So do you mind saying what games you have out already on Sony?
Yeah, so our first game was called Tales from Space About a Blob. That was released on the PS3 February 2011. And then our second game was called Tales from Space Mutant Blobs Attack. And that was released on the PlayStation Vita in February of this year. And now we're working on Guacamelee, which is going to be released on both PS3 and PS Vita early next year.
And if someone wants to download your Drinkbox Studio games onto their PS3 or other game system, exactly how do they find you guys on the catalog?
So if you go into the PlayStation Store on your console, you should be able to search for Tales from Space or Blobs, and it should show up in the search results, and you can just click on it and buy it digitally and download it to your console.
Great, thank you so much for talking with me.
No worries.
And your game, Guacamelee, looks really fun, and the people who are playing it are enjoying it, so thank you.
Thank you.